Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. My name is Josh Lindell. I'm a grad student studying Neanderthal teeth, and I'm here with...
I'm Dr. Kimberly Plump. I'm a bioarchaeologist. I study the human skeleton, health and disease, and evolution.
And I'm Dr. Ross Barnett, and I'm not very well at the minute.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, this episode should be coming out on December 24th, so Kim has found us an appropriate Christmas movie. We have tried every year of this podcast to find a really good archaeology Christmas movie, and I'm not sure we're quite there, but this is probably the most Christmassy, the most archaeological Christmas movie we've got so far.
Yeah, but Rare Exports was good. I stand by Rare Exports.
Rare Exports was a great movie, but the archaeology in it was a little bit tenuous.
Yeah.
Unlike this one.
At least they use the word archaeology in this one.
Yeah.
So the movie we're reviewing today is called Saving Christmas Spirit from 2022, I believe.
Yep.
It is a Hallmark-style romance movie, but it's not made by Hallmark. It's a made-for-TV movie from Nicely Entertainment. So who wants to summarize this one?
I guess I will, since Ross sounds like he's dying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think my notes aren't the greatest for this one. And isn't it? I got the impression it was a Canadian film, or Canadian financed, perhaps.
I don't know.
What it is it's one of these, I think, Hallmarky Christmas movies that get filmed in Richmond. Like, they just do like a dozen of them a year. They just get churned out every year, these new ones.
Though this one is at least partly filmed in Scotland. They didn't fake that.
Yeah. So they went all out.
Not in acting lessons.
Okay, am I doing it?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Christmas movies are always terrible. There's only a few good Christmas movies, right? Generally, they're absolutely terrible because you also have to suspend the belief of, like, adults not believing in Santa, but Santa is real. So how did, like, it just, when you start thinking of it, it's like time travel, right? Like, it just doesn't work. But so there's an archaeologist, and she's working as what seems to be a professor, and her specialty is Pictish history. So Pictish is a ancient peoples of Scotland, and they're known for their Pictish stones, like carvings and stuff on rocks. And so she needs to find Pictish stones in order to keep her job, or else she's going to be fired. And she's really annoyed because, like, Scottish farmers and stuff keep finding Pictish stones, and she has excavated and she's never found a Pictish stone. And so her dean, or the head of her department is also her friend, and he tells her that he has to do cutbacks, and she makes a comment like that her head of department is threatening her grant, but then he says that they have to do departmental cutbacks, and she's on the cutting board because she hasn't discovered anything. And then he gets an email from somebody in Scotland saying that they found journals. Somebody found old journals, and so they need her to go to Scotland right away over Christmas break to verify that these journals are old. She's more than happy to do that because she just broke up with her boyfriend. She doesn't believe in Christmas because, she can't believe in Christmas at the beginning of the movie. So she's more than happy to go to Scotland and look at these journals. And so she does, and she ends up at this beautiful house, like manor thing at B&B, this centuries-old house with B&B with this woman who is very kind of eccentric and loves Christmas. And it becomes very clear right away that she believes her husband, who's deceased, is haunting, but in a good way. So, like, he rings the bell at Christmas and he makes fire magic and he does all these things. And then she tells her that the kitchen is closed, and so she needs to go to the pub. And it becomes very clear, like, right when you hear you need to go to the pub and she has that little smile on her face, you know that this is where the love interest is going to be, right? And then we meet a teenage boy who's also American, and he is there visiting his aunt, so he's there. And his storyline is so boring, and I don't know what it adds to the movie. It's so terrible. Anyways, so she goes to the pub and she orders a wine, and she wants wine and food to go because she's got research to do. And the guy at the pub is like, "You need to try whiskey. You're not whatever." And she's like, "Well, I'm part Scottish." And he's like, "Not if you're not trying whiskey." And she's like, "I don't like whiskey. I just want wine in a sandwich." And he pulls the annoying, like, "Well, you're not cool because you're not drinking what I like to drink." It drives me nuts. Anyways, and then it's supposed to be bad on her because she just wants to go home and do research. And that's supposed to be a bad thing. But so then we find out pretty quick that the mom of the bartender is the lady that owns the Airbnb, and she was hoping that they would fall in love because she met her right away and was like, yes, this is the girl for my son. That's why she sent her there. And we learn that the son has a distillery and he's making a special whiskey called Christmas Spirit. So that's where the name of the movie comes from. And he was working on it with his dad, who passed away before they're able to get the company up and going. But he doesn't have, it's all about to be bottled and sold on Christmas Eve for the first time. But then we find out that the bottlers aren't going to bottle it without being paid in advance, which kind of makes sense, right? Like, you don't want to bottle everything and then not get paid. But they're really upset about this, and they think it's because there's bad guys who want to buy the company from them. And he doesn't want to sell it because it's his and his dad and his dream. Anyway, so they have to find money to pay for the bottling. And then so it comes up. So the American nephew is playing rugby and he's fighting. His girlfriend wants to play rugby, but the school is sexist and says that they can't have a female rugby team and that she can't play on the male team. And kind of a weird fight to be having in 2023. But so they're big into rugby. And so that's where this rugby game thing comes from. And then we find out that the town every year, the proceeds of the big Christmas Eve rugby game goes towards a charity that the town chooses. And so the nephew asks if the charity can be to bottle the Christmas Spirit. And they all agree because these people are so good to the community and they always give charity to other people. And then, so he gets the money to bottle it and gives all the charity money to the bottlers, but then finds out there's something, I forget, something to do with some water that he needs now he can't get. So now they can't they can't make any of the whiskey, which I didn't understand because the whiskey should already be made. Like they're at the bottling stage. It doesn't make any
sense at all.
So yeah. So like, why do you need, it should be, whiskey doesn't, you're not just going to make it starting tomorrow morning and bottle it tomorrow night unless it's really shite whiskey, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then also, like, if you're at the point when you're bottling, you should, have money put away, right? Like, this is all just really bad business planning on his end. Like, so even if he got this done, he'd probably end up destroying the business anyways, because he obviously doesn't make smart decisions.
He did say specifically his father was upset with him because he studied poetry instead of business.
Yes, that's true. So he makes really silly business decisions all the way through. And she does get fired because she hasn't found anything. But then, so this is the archaeology part of the story. So she is trying to find, so she finds the journals. They are authentic. She thinks they're 300 years old. And then she finds this one piece corner of a journal she dropped on the way to the office, and the boy brings it to her because she's like, oh, that's part of the 300-year-old journal. Oh, thank you. I just dropped this without noticing. And then puts it on, and then it completes the picture. And then she realizes that it's, I don't remember the name, but the Scottish goddess of
Cailleach.
Christmas, or Cailleach. Yeah. So what is she? The goddess of what? Winter?
Cailleach is just Gaelic for old woman, but it's kind of applies to lots of different things. It's just like it can be used as a personification of winter and gets named after lots of things.
Right. So she took it as the goddess of winter or something. Yeah. And so she thought if she could find that the journals might give an indication for the location of, was it a tomb or an altar for this?
A shrine? Was that what she called it?
A shrine for this, goddess of winter. And then if she could find this shrine, then it would be a real archaeologist. So then she'd get her job back, get to keep her job. It's really confusing. And then, but she can't find it because the directions in the books don't make sense to the modern typology of the plains, which doesn't make sense either because it, like, when you're out there, it hasn't changed in 300 years. Probably like the lake hasn't moved that much or anything. Anyway, so she can't figure it out. And then there's like this struggle between her and the whiskey guy because they're obviously deeply in love and they know that they're meant to be together, even though they've known each other for 2 days maybe. But neither of them are going to give up their life, and she doesn't want a long distance relationship because that's how her other relationship just ended 2 days ago. So you know, she's not going to give up. She says, she makes a comment at the end like, I'm not going to give up my job, and I'd never ask you to give up the distillery. And I'm like, but you just got fired. Like, that was the whole scene a little while ago. So you don't have a job to go back to.
Mm.
And there was a job available in Scotland that she put her nose up to, like an archivist or something, which would be an awesome job. Yeah. And you're not going to get fired because you haven't found something in a dig site. Anyways, and then he gets upset about the news that he's not going to be able to make his distillery or the whiskey because the water mess up. And then his mom is like, but oh no, it's not his mom. It's some random old guy that sits down and talks to him. But I've never did he come up at any point in the movie before that?
I think he was he not the barman?
Was he? I never saw him before. And then all of a sudden he sits down and he says like, but it was the distillery keeping you here. And now if the distillery is not working because you've had to sell it off because you made stupid decisions, now you can follow her to America. And so then he does. He goes and he says that he loves her and that he's going to move to Chicago with her for her job that she apparently now she has because, they did find, because the altar ended up being at the distillery. Yeah. So, and they
under about like
to dig it
6 centimeters of soil.
Like, right here, do you think they like brushed away some soil? They're like, oh my gosh, look at the artifacts. It's so beautiful. And then the guy says something. Oh, it was supposed to be this winning thing because when the charity gave him the money for the whiskey, he said, when I make money, I'm going to give it back twofold to the school. And then but on the condition that the school allows girls to play rugby. And that's supposed to be like the end of this, except like that storyline. And that's all nice that now the girls can play rugby, but that's not going to happen because he didn't get it's gone, right? He didn't get the money. He's not selling his Christmas spirit. And why would you name your whiskey Christmas Spirit? Like, are you trying to make it so it only sells at one time of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bad business decision.
Yeah, another bad business decision.
I think that's it.
He also, he took her on a tour of the warehouse where they keep the barrels, and he told her it's been aging for 15 years. This is a 15-year-old Scotch whiskey branded for Christmas, which he planned to bottle on Christmas Eve.
And didn't have any money for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really bad.
And also, when the river pump breaks on December 24th, and he's like, oh no, we can't make any more Christmas spirit. Like, you made it 15 years ago. That doesn't make a difference at this point.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It was all ridiculous. Yeah. These movies are horrible.
Yeah. I feel, as a proud Highlander, I feel like my culture has been trashed in this movie. And it deeply upset me.
Okay, Ross, let's start with your criticism, because I feel like you're going to have the most to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does at least show some nice scenery in Scotland. It's sort of filmed in parts of it down kind of on the west coast. So like the Glenfinnan Viaduct, which is more famous from Harry Potter, makes a few appearances. Fort William, which is a shithole of a town, appears in some of the aerial shots. But it's right next to Glencoe, so it's quite a popular sort of tourist destination until they get there and decide that it's terrible, which it is. Let's see. Well, one thing that annoyed me right from the start, so like one of the first notes I've had is that they have this kind of twee pipe music playing in the background, but it's not Scottish pipes. They're Ulan pipes that are playing. They don't have a drone in the background, which is the kind of characteristic of Scottish pipes. So they're using either Irish or Northumbrian pipes for their background music. That's how little they care about my culture, essentially. Yeah. And as Kim said, like, the thing with these films is that they always try and shoehorn, oh, Santa's real, by the way, in there.
Oh yeah, I forgot Santa showed up. I didn't. Oh right, Santa saved the day because Santa dropped the necklace that proved to her that her grandma's spirit was alive. I don't know. I was losing track of all of this. So her grandma's spirit, who came in at some point in time. Yeah,
Santa was there. He's real. Reindeer can fly. Yeah, all that bullshit. Yeah. One thing that annoyed me quite early on is reindeer make many appearances in this film, and they're just like the kind of assumption is they just live wild in the Highlands, but they've been extinct for at least 1,000 years in Scotland. Probably 6,000 or 7,000 years. There's not been any wild living reindeer in Scotland. And even today, people have tried to reintroduce them and they die like pretty much straight away. There's like one herd.
Aw.
There's one herd of reindeer that live semi-wild in the cairngorms, and they have to have sort of supplemental feeding over winter. So
Right.
you don't have wild reindeer just wandering around the west coast of Scotland, which was annoying. And also they messed that up as well. This is like the only bit of trivia in the IMDb was that they gave the reindeer, while they're chatting about these reindeer that just turn up beside the hotel and have been around for ages, and they've got little kind of medallions with their names on. And he sort of tells them how sometimes his dad used to tell him they helped out Santa pull his sleigh. One of them's called Gilly,
Right.
which is a boy's name, but it's got huge antlers. And reindeer, although both sexes have antlers, uniquely amongst deer, during winter, the males lose their antlers. It's only the females that have antlers during the winter. So that's why all Santa's reindeer must be female if they've got antlers. And this reindeer shouldn't have a boy's name because it's got antlers in winter. So yeah, that was terrible.
We talked about that in the rare exports episode as well. But another thing about these reindeer is they're in the process of shedding their velvet, which I'm not sure when it happens, but it has to be earlier than Christmas, right? I looked up a little bit and I found details for like North American caribou, which may or may not be the same as European reindeer.
They are.
But it suggested that they start shedding their velvet in like August or September.
Yeah,
so
that would make sense.
Clearly they were filming this in late summer. But also, like, when we first see the reindeer, we get this nice close-up shot on these reindeer antlers, and they're just gross and bloody because they're shedding their velvet. And I have to imagine that, like, the filmmakers are, like, planned out the whole thing and, like, didn't know anything about reindeer biology, and they showed up and, like, why the fuck are their antlers covered in blood and gore?
Yeah, that's a harsh biology lesson right there. Other things that annoyed me, just, making my home country just like a very kind of twee, and it's just a background kind of magical place. It's not filled with real people with real problems. It's filled with crazy hotel running women who speak to their dead husbands and crap business people who don't know how to run couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery. And various locals who only seem to like make stupid comments, be evil, or drink whiskey. That's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was terrible. Finn, the American kind of nephew that's kind of shoehorned in there. His friend, who's a girl, who's like a ginger. Which yes, there are many people with red hair in Scotland, but her accent is terrible. It kind of wanders all over the place. She sounds Orcadian, possibly. She definitely doesn't sound like she's from the West Coast. But she can act a little bit, which is nice, compared to Finn, who's terrible.
Oh, so bad.
Yeah. I was annoyed that they kind of made the school sexist and not playing rugby. Like, my younger sister, who's 3 years younger than me, she was part of the girls' rugby team at my school in the 90s, and it wasn't even thought of as an issue back then. So
no, it was a weird thing to try and make it like that this was their storyline, and you're like, we don't have money for more than one team. And you're like, no school is like that now. Like, it's just,
I mean, they can just use the same ball. I mean, it's not super expensive. It's not like American football where you have to get
volunteers or
it's not like you have to wear lots of special equipment. It's basically shorts and a t-shirt and a rugby ball. That's all you need to play rugby. They've already got the pitch. It's all right there. So that was terrible.
Weird. It was like a whole different movie.
It was. I mean, what my impression were, they just sort of like rammed this in there because like rugby, that's a bit like American football. We need to somehow relate to American audiences. But so weirdly, the only actor I'd ever seen in any other production was the rugby teacher, who was a Scouse actor who was reasonably famous for a time in the 90s and 2000s as part of our Liverpool set soap opera called Brookside, which was, is now extinct, but he was a big character in that. Anyway, I'm digressing.
Mhm.
What else annoyed me?
It's just a list of your grievances.
Pretty much, yeah. Oh, that she finds a Pictish stone just when they're out walking,
Hmm.
and that's, I mean, no. I can't really put anything else on that.
Yeah, Kim, you also mentioned how she's like annoyed and jealous every time she hears about somebody else finding a Pictish stone. Like,
You would be excited because you still need to study it. It's not like finding it is the only important
yeah, it's not
part
like
about
that
it.
sheep that dug up a Pictish stone at the beginning got to keep it. Like,
Yeah. It just adds
when
like you study
farmers
it.
find artifacts, they go to a museum and then the archaeologists study them, right?
Yeah.
I know it was just a really big misunderstanding. Well, and then it was also so strange that she's an archaeologist who specializes in Pictish stones, but then randomly gets sent to look at the authenticity of 300-year-old journals in Scotland. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the purview of an archaeologist.
That's interdisciplinarity.
It's it's random, and there would be someone in the UK, someone in Scotland that would be able to go do that. Like, it wouldn't be have to call in someone from the States to go do that.
Well, right at the beginning at that Christmas party, he did say that the whole art history department was drunk, so maybe she was the only one left on Christmas who was willing to go to Scotland to verify them.
I guess, but someone in the UK, someone in Scotland would verify them. Someone from the National Museum would go up and verify them. Like, it's not like...
Or, before they published, we found these journals, they'd have authenticated them.
Yeah.
I can put in some good things I noticed as a Highlander that maybe you guys wouldn't have noticed, is that the dances they do at the Cayleys and at the Christmas market, so they have some kind of dancing going on, but those are actual Scottish country dances. Like the first one they do I think it's at the Christmas market. Duncan and Lucy is her name, is it? They do a dance which every Highland school kid gets taught at school, called the Canadian Barn Dance.
Yeah.
Which is, you see that, I mean, we all, like, it's probably the most useful thing we learned in school, to be honest. So like for every Cayley, we know how to do the dances, and every wedding we can do the dances. And the Canadian Barn Dance goes, you hold your partner by the hand, and you go 1, 2, 3 forward, and then do a little hop, back 2, 3, do a hop, out to the side for 3 and clap, back in, and then you waltz around again. And that's the dance they do. So that was very accurate. I liked that. And then later on at the Christmas Eve Cayley, they do a dance which is called the Gay Gordons, which is endlessly amusing to primary school kids. But that's where you dance side by side with your partner, and you put your right hand over her right shoulder and hold her left hand there, and you kind of walk forward for 3, and then reverse and go back for 3. So yeah, they got their dances right. That's good.
Good.
They did have some Scottish archaeology on show. So when she's kind of looking through the journal that she found, I noticed she's got some other books open on her desk, and one of the pages is open to a very distinctive looking wooden sculpture, which is the Brodenbjorg idol, which is in the National Museum of Copenhagen, which is found in a peat bog, and it's amusingly carved with an enormous penis and a small face. It's very distinctive, but that's Danish, but there have been kind of wooden idols found in bogs in Scotland, and including quite close to where some of this was filmed in Ballachulish. There's the Ballachulish idol, which is kind of Bronze Age wooden with sort of quartz stones for eyes, found in a peat bog, and dating to, I think, the Bronze Age as well. So that's at least some real archaeology in there. And I did like how, compared to pretty much every other film we've seen, she did tell somebody who'd started talking to her about dinosaurs that paleontologists study dinosaurs and she just studies people. I thought that was cool. And then even later on, someone's talking about, it's why doesn't Santa have flying pterodactyls or dinosaurs or something? And she says, well, pterodactyls are pterosaurs, they're not dinosaurs. So that was also quite neat, I thought. Almost more kind of real archaeology bitch slapping than any other film we've seen. So I enjoyed that.
And things that we've all had to say. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Except that she seems to know more about what archaeology isn't than what archaeology is.
That is a good point.
Can we talk about her ground penetrating radar?
Oh yeah, we have to.
Oh gosh. Wouldn't that be amazing to have?
It's essentially, it's like a PKE meter from Ghostbusters. That's what it looks like. She just sort of waves it around, looking for
It's
ghosts.
like a Star Trek thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a tricorder. It's just a magic device that tells her anything. She's waving it around. She says it's radar, and he asks what she's looking for, and she's like, anything, jewelry, stones. Like, oh, so you've got a magic wand that can tell you if there's jewelry or stones in the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, but I can tell you exactly everywhere. What this
is. Yeah, we do have a lot of stones.
I can tell you exactly what this is. It is a handheld metal detector, like for security, like when you'd go through an airport. And there's a few models that you can find online that look very similar to it. I'm pretty sure it's like one of these cheap Chinese ones where like different companies will slap their own label on it. But the closest one I can find is the Flipco handheld metal detector super scanner with beep vibrator, which you can find on Amazon India for 975 rupees. I don't know what the exchange rate for rupees is. But it's similar to another model which you can find on Amazon for about $40 American. So they found probably the cheapest handheld metal detector they could find. Also, the particular model they have on the opposite part to the handle, in big yellow letters, it says Super Scanner, but they replaced that with a sticker that looked like those little green radar, like the rotating bleep, bleep, bleep radar things. It's a sticker. There's one shot where they showed close up where I think they meant to have it look like an LED screen, but it's clearly just a sticker covering up the big yellow Super Scanner label on it.
Well, 975 rupees is approximately £10, which I think is about $15.
So it's even cheaper than the other one.
Yeah.
I think this is an older model. We should say how a ground penetrating radar actually works. Have either of you ever used a ground penetrating radar?
I have. Yeah, weirdly enough, I have. In Scotland. I was doing some field work up in Orkney with some colleagues, and we used ground penetrating radar in the Arcadian winter. So it was, it was difficult staying upright because the wind was so strong, and it rained like sideways the whole time. A lot of walking around.
What does the device look like if it's not a handheld metal detector?
It looks like a folded up clothes dryer. You know those clothes dryers you can buy from the shops that are kind of just metal frames? It's like that, or the one I used was, and you kind of have to sort of stick it into the ground every step, let it take a measurement, and then pick it up and stick it into the ground.
Interesting.
Maybe that's not ground penetrating radar. Maybe that was something slightly different. I think it might mean conductivity.
Yeah, I haven't used ground penetrating radar, but the ones I think about look like kind of like a push lawnmower.
Yeah.
They have like 4 wheels and you push them back and forth across the ground.
Yeah. Or there's ones that look like weed whackers too, right?
Yeah. They're definitely not handheld.
Yeah, either way, you don't just wander around and wave your hand around and wait for it to beep. You do it systematically where you go back and forth in like transects and like you like cover an entire area. And it also can't tell you if there's jewelry or stones. What it's detecting is like anomalous sort of reflectivity in the ground, right? Or something like that, if it's radar. So you'll get like a readout that looks like a staticky TV screen where there might be some different, disruptions in the pattern, which are going to indicate, usually you're going to be looking for burials, like disturbed soil or like large stone foundations or things like that. It's not going to detect jewelry, I can't imagine, in any way, right?
Yeah.
And then how on earth, so she's using a detector to look for stones in the ground and it's supposed to beep when it finds a cool stone? It's just ridiculous.
Magic stones. But if she just said it was a metal detector, which is what it actually is, and she said she was looking for metal, then that would have been fine. I mean, that would have...
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how archaeologists work, but at least it would have made some kind of coherence.
We probably wouldn't even be talking about it. It would just be nothing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
talking of kind of ground penetrating radar, I think I was doing some other field work in New Zealand, a quite famous site looking for moa, these kind of extinct giant birds. It's an old swamp site which has literally brought thousands of moa individuals out of it. And the guy that did the ground penetrating radar, he did the work before we came down to excavate, and so he'd kind of done the whole site looking for anomalies, and he'd found an anomaly, and we dug there for like 2 weeks and found like 4 bones in that whole time. I think the anomaly he found that there was nothing there. Like the rest of the swamp had like tons of bones, and he found the part that was different, which had none.
Yeah, interesting.
One thing we should go over is that they're looking for Pictish ruins. Who are the Picts? I don't know anything about, this is not really Stone Age. Pictish is going to be definitely Metal Age, Iron Age, or...
Yeah, I don't know all that much.
Nobody knows all that much about them. That's the interesting thing, right? Is that there's not that much. The only thing that we know is from stones and just a few artifacts.
Yeah, they were just the people that were there when the Romans turned up, who called them the Picts because they used paint to paint themselves. But definitely in the West Coast, they were kind of supplanted by the Gaels who came over from Ireland and kind of spread from the West. And so, apart from their amazing kind of stone carvings, the kind of Class 1 and Class 2 Pictish stones, which are all over the place and which I think are thought to be kind of boundary markers between different groups because they kind of have particular images are kind of clustered together. But so in Inverness, where I am, we have the Boar Stone, which used to be, even until my dad's day, just in a farm on the outskirts of Inverness. It would just stand there. It's about 2 and a bit meters square. It's a Class 1 stone, I think, which means that it's incised on just a kind of raw bit of stone. The stone itself hasn't been worked. It's just the image carved onto it. A big bit of some kind of sedimentary sandstone, I think, which is a picture of a wild boar on it. Other places nearby, so Strathpeffer, which is about 15 miles away, has the Eagle Stone, which has it's also, I think, Class 1, so it's got an eagle carved in it, a sea eagle, which were extinct for about a century in Scotland before being reintroduced. And so the Class 2 ones are much more ornate and more dressed, so they're usually square or crucifix style crosses with much more ornate carvings on them, and they're slightly later when the Picts were being kind of becoming Christian. So there's a mix of kind of pagan and Christian imagery on a lot of these later images, whereas the earlier ones tend to be of animals, salmon, boar, wolves.
And then there's
bulls.
the Pictish monster too.
Yeah, kelpie kind of sea monster things, which look like kind of horse-fish hybrids.
They're cool.
Bronze mirrors, things called Zed rods, all sorts of things. But the museum in Inverness has quite a few really good examples, and the museum in Edinburgh has all the best ones as well. But you wouldn't just find them lying on the ground. Like there was actually quite a big news story recently in Dingwall, which is about 10 miles from Inverness, or just outside Dingwall. They were excavating an old church cemetery, and what's happened with quite a lot of these stones is that, particularly the Class 2 ones, the dressed angular ones, were repurposed by later people. And so this Class 2 Pictish stone, which had incredible carvings of knotwork and of kind of monsters on it and all sorts of things, had been repurposed as a gravestone in the 18th century. So sometime in the 1700s, somebody thought, it's okay, but I think we'll just use it as a gravestone. And then it had been kind of forgotten about and covered over. And so these things are found rarely enough that it was quite a big news story up here. And it's now being kind of conserved and looked after properly.
They kind of remind me of the Viking ruins that you find
definitely.
across Scandinavia.
Yeah, similar kinds of history.
I spent 2 weeks in Port Mahomet. Analyzing a Pictish cemetery that was found on the Christian church. So it was right at the time when there was that transition from Picts to Christians. Yeah, it was beautifully preserved.
Did you go and did you find some of them round? There must be some round Port Mahomet when you were there. Did you go and see any?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did like a little tour of it. I don't remember what they had on them though. But so I analyzed the skeletons. They're kept in this church, the Tarbuck church. It's beautiful, and it's been made into a museum. And they keep the skeletons in like underneath the ground. Like, so there's the floor of the church, and then there's another second floor, but it's more like a stage but higher. I don't know how to describe it. And so they keep the skeletons under there, so you kind of go into it, feels like a cellar. And it's way at the back. So I'd have to like crawl past like ladders and all the storage from the museum, right? And crawl into the back with my little headlamp and then try and find well-preserved crania, because that's what I needed. And then it was easiest to like get a box and fill it with crania and bring it out instead of bringing out each individual box. So I was in there one time and I didn't realize that there was a tour of tourists going around the museum. And so they were all standing around like the little door that I go in and out of, right? That was like closed behind me. And they're all like looking at the poster, and the tour guide was telling them like all about the poster, whatever was above there. And I didn't know they were there. And I think I even had my headphones on, so I didn't hear anything, right? So they would have just been standing there listening to the tour guide, and these little doors flew open and this box of skulls came out. And then I had to like wiggle. Like I couldn't just walk. Like this was all wiggling, right? So then I just kind of like wiggled out, completely covered in dust and grime. And like my hair is crazy because I've just gone through all of this with like my headlamp on. And then I just like looked at them, like kind of like blinked at them. And then the tour guide was like, and that's an archaeologist. Moving on.
Wow. You could have had some fun with that. You could have dressed up as a ghost and just like burst out at them, give them a heart attack.
Because no one had really been around the whole time, so I wasn't really thinking it. But yeah, it was the box. I don't know what they would have thought when the box of skulls came out first, right?
Yeah.
And then it's so embarrassing because like I even remember like it was really hard because I had to wiggle and get through, plus keep my pants up, right? Because it was really squishy and like narrow. Yeah. So there was a lot going on for me to pay attention to before I noticed the tourists watching me. And I told the lady that ran the Airbnb I was staying at, so I was telling her, I was like, oh, it was so embarrassing. You know, I was like, they're going to think archaeologists are so weird. And she's like, I think you probably were just exactly what they always thought archaeologists were. I was like, maybe.
Well, why don't we talk about the sort of fragility of her job in this movie? Her job is on the chopping block.
Which, like, like with departmental cuts, and if you're not publishing and you're not doing that, then like, and you're not getting grants, you might get cut, especially if you're a junior. But your head of your department's not going to have say over your grants, and they're not going to threaten your grants. Your department head is going to want you to have grants and bring grants in. They're usually external, right? Because they want you to, getting grants is all good for the department. And then like you would need notice, right? Like it's all procedural. Like she would have to have known already that it was getting to that point. And then I don't think that it would be more of like, it's Christmas and you're not coming back January 1st. It would be more like in next, like you have till the end of the year, right? Like whatever her contract is, I suppose. Yeah.
Even within the movie, its logic isn't consistent because she's at a Christmas party 2 weeks before Christmas where her department chair tells her that she is chopping block adjacent is the wording that they use. But then he says, there are some journals that showed up in Scotland and maybe you can go verify them and that'll help secure your job somehow. And she's like, great, I'll go tomorrow. And he's like, well, you don't have to go until after the holidays. And she's like, no, I'll go tomorrow. But then while she's away before Christmas, so less than 2 weeks later, he calls her to tell her that she's been fired. And like, I thought you said that she was safe at least until after the holidays when she would have had the chance to go do this. Like, it doesn't make any sense how quickly it happened, right?
And she did verify them. Like she did do what she was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense.
But you know, the life of an archaeologist is almost as precarious as it is depicted in the film.
Yeah, definitely. You just have more notice, I think, and like you would know that like you haven't been publishing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she keeps saying, well, she wants to have a dig. She wants to have a dig. That's what she wants. Well, why don't you get your butt over there and analyze the picture stones that farmers are finding and write some papers or a book and like do some work, and then maybe you could get a grant to do field work.
Yeah.
Based on what you've learned about the stone. Like, it's not just about finding it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the kind of big misconception, is that you just have to find shit. That's like the easiest part of the job, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Also, throughout the movie, she keeps referring to everything as relics. She wants to hunt for relics. She wants to find more relics. And like, I don't think I've ever heard an archaeologist use the term relic.
No. And then even when she finds the relics at the distillery and they brush away, like with their foot or whatever, they brush away a bit of the dirt and then find something. I don't know what it was they found. She just picks it up right away. Like no context, no nothing.
No gloves.
No gloves, yeah.
They dug, so at night, with no grid, no way to record context, with a shovel that was sitting there, the guy does the digging while she supervises, which I guess is realistic because she wants to head the dig. She doesn't want to do the dig herself, but still, she's the one with the like archaeological training. She's the one who should be doing the digging, but they don't even like. Well, he said he sold the distillery, although he said he still owns the land. I didn't quite understand if he was selling his distillery but not the land it was on.
I know, but then he tore up the contract at the end too. So does he?
Yeah,
did he
you can't just tear up a contract, right?
None of it makes sense. So now is he still going to Chicago, or does he still own the distillery? None of it makes sense.
Has that kept you up at night, Kim, wondering whether he's going to go to Chicago or stay with the distillery?
Probably not.
Part of it that I think was relatively true to real life is that once they found the artifacts, like the breakthrough there is that they can't do any more they can't start any construction at the site because there are archaeological artifacts, and most countries are going to have some kind of laws about that. I assume Scottish laws are going to be, they're going to say if there's archaeology underground there and you know about it, you're going to have to do a cultural resource management excavation before construction, so that it would at least delay the construction a little bit.
Yeah, but he still sold it.
All of the distillery stuff doesn't make any sense. So he's 15 years ago started a specialty Scotch called Christmas Spirit, which he is supposed to have gotten out this Christmas, which would, solve their cash flow problem, but he didn't bottle it before Christmas Eve. I also don't understand, when he's talking about the bottlers, is he talking about literally people who are going to be doing the work that he's paying, or is it a third-party company with the bottling machines that are going to come into his facility to bottle? I couldn't quite understand what he meant by that.
I assumed it was like a company that would supply the bottles and take the barrels and sort of decant it into them and seal it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how it's done in Scotland, but like I would imagine the bottling would be done in-house if like they've got the storage, they have the distillery there, they have the storage, the warehouses for the barrels there. Why would you either ship your barrels somewhere else to have them bottled, or to have a company come in to do the bottling? Why wouldn't you just have your bottling line in-house?
Especially if you had 15 years to set it up. I mean, if I can understand, I'm not a business person. I would fuck up a business. But if you're going to distill whiskey, you got to make the whiskey, you got to bottle the whiskey. Those are the two main steps, right? Like other little things you could mess up.
Yeah.
There could be an explanation. Like here in Manitoba, there is a big Seagram's distillery where they make Crown Royal whiskey, among other things. But these are blended whiskeys, and what they do is they distill them and barrel them at the distillery here. So they have warehouses and warehouses out on the prairie full of barrels of whiskey. But they put those barrels on a train and send them to another Seagram's facility in Ontario where they actually do the blending. So, it is possible that the bottling is done elsewhere, but it's not like it's the same company. Right? It's not like they're outsourcing their bottling to a third party, which still feels weird. Plus, this is not a big, Seagram's is a huge company, right? It's I can't remember, there was some story about the Seagram's heirs who are rich socialites, right? this is a small independent Scotch brewery or Scotch distillery. I can't imagine that he doesn't have more than one facility, right? So he's not shipping his barrels somewhere else. Doesn't really make any sense.
Like you would be, and also like you'd be excited about this. You'd have the labels already designed and made. You'd probably have the labels already.
He did. They were terrible. They were just a little green circle with a deer on it, and it says Christmas Spirit. They were awful.
I didn't see that.
Ross, do you drink whiskey?
I don't. No, I'm a terrible excuse for a Scots person, but I don't drink whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
I love whiskey, but I feel like I've never been to Scotland. I don't know what I like Scotch, but I'm making assumptions here. I'm assuming that a Christmas branded Scotch whiskey in Scotland is a bad marketing idea.
Yeah.
It seems like a gimmick, like the kind of stuff you'd find in North America here, like apple cinnamon sugar flavored whiskey or like pecan whiskey. They all taste like candy. These are things that you can find here that like they're the kind of thing that you would drink if you're a teenager, or maybe you have them at Christmas and you mix them with eggnog or something. But like a real whiskey is not a gimmick, right? And I feel like Scotch is like the pinnacle of whiskey. A gimmicky Scotch just sounds like a bad idea. Yeah,
definitely. I think, well, certainly the advertising over here is all about kind of tradition and sort of longevity and the sort of famous distilleries that are nearby, like, Glenmorangie and Tomatin and places like that. They just have their kind of name on them, so you know where the distillery is and how old it is, and then all sorts of flowery language about what the whiskey itself tastes like. But there's the only gimmicks they do is particular years. So like they'll have 25 or 20-year-old stuff, which will get its own sort of special name because it's so special. But yeah, you don't get like Easter whiskey or sort of Halloween whiskey or anything like that. That would be terrible.
I don't know why you'd want to limit your sales to a certain time of year.
Yeah.
Right. I could see if you had a big line and then one of them was a Christmas one that you brought out once a year in a special.
Or if it was just really shite and you needed to offload it quickly and it was near Christmas.
Yeah, this Christmas spirit.
I feel like the entire movie is based on that pun, Christmas spirit. Someone was like, hey, spirit means like soul, but it also means whiskey. Maybe there's something there. And then they built a whole movie around it and then somehow crammed archaeology into it. That's the thing. The archaeology in this movie could almost be anything. Like she could have had almost any job where in the end there's some reason to save the distillery because of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can sort of almost imagine like some sequels. So like Saving Christmas Spirit 2, where it's a woman who is randomly, a linguist, goes to Moscow to save a vodka heir who's making like vodka Christmas Spirit. And you could do it with all sorts of things. You could do vodka, whiskey, what else? Port, which is actually quite a nice Christmas Spirit. Tequila, go to Mexico. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Ouzo.
Yeah. Go to Greece.
Yeah.
I would watch them. You know what I would do is have a Christmas drinking game where you
every time she says
Christmas Spirit series. Get a new bottle of liquor for every movie. Sounds like a nice holiday tradition.
Oh yeah.
But then we'd have to watch more of these movies. So.
Yeah, that would be the trade-off.
They get nicer and nicer the more drinks you have.
Oh dear. Had you seen any of these actors in anything? Like the main characters I'd seen in nothing. The only one I recognized was the teacher.
Her face was a bit familiar, but I don't know.
But that's because it looked like every other Hollywood face.
Yes,
pretty much.
That's true. She could be any of them.
The lead character, the lead actor, has been in 7 Hallmark-style Christmas movies in the past 7 years. 8 if you count Love in Glacier National, a National Park Romance, which I'm not sure if it's Christmas or just winter themed.
Well, she's found her niche. Just keep working it.
Oh, there's also one she's in called Snowman's, which seems to be...
Snowman's?
It seems to be the live action adaptation of Frosty the Snowman, possibly. A snowman.
Jesus.
Snowman comes to life and she falls in love with him. That's what I'm guessing from the trailer.
Okay. Is this her best role?
I don't know.
I think it is. I think when you go to her IMDb account, it says most famous for, and this is one of the films. But yeah, I mean, she's not a terrible actress. But
no, and I mean, it's probably kind of like the romance novel art writers, right? Like you do work for a month a year, and then you live off that, right? She's probably paid enough to. Yeah,
that's not a bad living. You get to travel to Scotland and hang out with reindeer, and well, it looks like she may have had to stay in Fort William, which is maybe not great.
Yeah, yeah, but the train. I mean, the train is fun.
Yeah.
So that's the Harry Potter train. That's the Hogwarts train. When they were standing below the rail, you can take that train. It's a steam train, right, or a coal train.
Yeah, they're actually looking for new train drivers for that train because it's fairly out of the way, and they have a job opportunity. So apply if you want.
My family went, and I got a big piece of soot stuck in my eye for a majority of the train ride. So it's not super happy memories for me, and I don't remember a lot of the beautiful views. But my family really enjoyed it.
Was all you could see?
Pictures my dad took are gorgeous. Yeah, it was in my good eye too, right?
Oh no!
So yeah,
dangers of steam.
And with only one eye, if it's gone, it's gone.
They did have one thing that I noted in my notes as being, okay, is that they had quotes from Burns on all of the rooms in the castle. Those were real quotes, which was nice. So one of them was,
his one
"Nay man can tether
time
nor tide." That's from Tam O'Shanter. That's quite nice and appropriate. And "My heart's in the Highlands wherever I go." That's also from Burns.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
But there's also this thing about the Cailleach log that gets carved every year. I had never heard of that ever. Having lived most of my life and been born in the Highlands, I'd never heard of that. But apparently it's a real thing. I did some kind of online sleuthing, and it seems to be a real tradition, but not one that I'd ever heard of. So, wow.
One thing I was going to ask you, Ross, do you have family, do you have like a clan Tartan? Is there a clan Barnett?
There is not a clan Barnett, unfortunately, which is an English surname. But every other...
I have...
Every other...
My mom's...
Oh, sorry, Kim.
I was going to say, my mom is Campbell of Argyll, so we have a Tartan.
Campbell. Oh, dear. Well, my family on my mum's side are MacLeod, both sides. So, like, my grandfather was a MacLeod, who married my grandmother, who was a MacLeod before she married. That tells you something about the gene pools over here. And on my dad's side, my gran was a McCaskill, which is a sept of the MacLeods. So it's like one of the other families. So the tartan I wear, that tartan I have option of wearing, there's quite a few. So most clans, I mean, these are all Victorian kind of inventions. It doesn't really mean anything. But you have like hunting tartan and you have dress tartan. So you have a couple of different options. But the one that my dad wears very proudly is the MacLeod of Lewis, which is yellow and black. You can see it from like a dozen miles away. It's like the tartan that Cher wears in Clueless. That kind of yellow and black. Yeah. Makes him look like a wasp. But it's great. The tartan I wear is I think the hunting MacLeod, which is more a kind of green and blue, more muted.
Yeah, ours is green and blue. It's really pretty.
But yeah, I mean, my kilt, it was handed down from my grandfather, so it's like about 100 years old. But kilts are super expensive. Like proper kilts, you're not going to get change from £500 for a kilt. And then you need the jacket, the sporran, the shoes, the ski and do.
Pin.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
I'm also, my mom's side is Matheson, so I grew up with Matheson tartan, and I've always wanted a proper kilt, but to get it shipped to Canada after like the cost of like 9 yards of wool or whatever they're made of, super expensive.
There are, I wouldn't kind of give up completely, because the the charity shops, certainly in Edinburgh, there's a charity shop called Armstrong's, which has, kilts that are 100 years old, but for sale for very reasonable. And they're, you can buy the cheap kind of nylon kilts in any kind of tourist shop in Scotland, but they last for like 5 minutes. But the proper old real kilts that are so expensive new, you can sometimes find, if you're lucky, in secondhand shops. So I'll keep an eye out for Matheson.
Thanks. Well, what are our final thoughts about this movie?
I hate these Christmas movies. My sister watches them every year, and they're just terrible.
That's Kim Scrooge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bah humbug. I mean,
well, they're generally sexist. I thought this one was going to be sexist, but then he ended up.
No, it was very
following her.
anti-sexist. They wanted to have a girls' rugby team.
Yeah, well.
And a girl doing archaeology. I mean, come on.
And he left generally what it is. And it kind of started out that way, where his dream was important and good, but her dream was just her being too work focused and not having the Christmas spirit. And she didn't really understand what life was about, right? And usually it's that whatever the small town man is thinking is important is what's important.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was terrible, but it was terrible in a different way than the terribles we usually get to watch. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's at least but it's these they're bad acting, forced scripts.
Yeah, Santa, reindeer.
Yeah,
just trashing of my culture.
And they really just threw Santa in at the end there. Like, I didn't think it was a Santa-oriented movie at all, and then all of a sudden he's dropping the necklaces from the sky.
And it's not even commented upon. So doesn't have any kind of existential crisis from seeing that Santa is real and has flying reindeer. She's just like, okay.
Santa dropped this, and he was like, really? She's like, yeah. The clue says everything's at the distillery. Like, there's not more conversation there. Yeah.
Do you know what I was a little worried about is she kept finding these carved stones with these deer symbols, and I'm like, oh no, it's that deer god from Black Mountain Side again.
That would have been better. That would have been better. If all of a sudden he just shows up. No.
That would have been a twist I would not have seen. I would have liked that. He is the Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
If you've been enjoying Screens of the Stone Age, get in touch with us. Follow us on Twitter at SOTSA_podcast and on Facebook at SOTSA podcast, or send us an email to screensofthestoneage@gmail.com. Screens of the Stone Age is supported by the Paleoanthropological Society of Canada. Find out more at pasc-scpa.ca.